Hello everybody, I'm Mango Thunderslice, and today I'm going to be talking about the shape of the Earth, specifically whether or not the Earth is flat, or if it's a ball. Alright, so for those who aren't aware of the flat Earth movement on the internet, basically this is something, the flat Earth theory has of course been around for a long time, hundreds of years, but during 2015 there was a resurgence of this theory. It kind of became its own new conspiracy theory. And basically, there's a group of people on the internet, just to recap, who are claiming that the Earth is flat and that there's camera evidence that they can show that basically there's no visible curvature of the Earth. And, they have various different pieces of evidence and, logical proofs that they claim indicates that the Earth is not a ball, it's not a globe, it's not a spheroid type shape, but it's in fact a flat plane. And there's different theories about how far it goes or, what actual shape it is. But so, most of the time I'm bringing people a little further into the conspiracy world with my videos. But today I'm going to do actually the opposite. And I'm going to bring people who have gone for long into the conspiracy world a little back more towards consensus reality, okay? The real world. And, I think I'm not here to make fun of flat earthers. I think that this is actually a very interesting thought experiment that actually I believe that kids in school should be taught not that the earth is flat or that the earth is round, but give them a challenge and say, prove it one way or the other. If the earth is round, if the earth is flat, it's up to you to prove what the truth is. And that is a way to build critical thinking skills. And I think what this flat earth thing has really revealed is how many people in our culture, especially who are kind of in the internet conspiracy world, have lost their grip on science and reality. And, I've talked a lot of shit on science in this video. I'm wearing this shirt. My stepmom gave it to me because she likes to make fun of me, I think, because she knows that I'm a conspiracy theorist, or so they say. But there's a couple logical proofs that I can offer today in this video, and I will, to rebut the flat earthers in a way that I think is unassailable. Okay, because I've actually thrown these things at the flat earthers, and I haven't had a single coherent. I actually haven't had any response at all. It's like they just go silent whenever I bring these things up. But suffice to say that I've had more than a dozen comments on my videos, specifically the ether science videos and the ones about Einstein, from flat earthers telling me that satellites are a hoax and, that the earth isn't spinning and all that stuff. And that's one thing, but actually there's somebody that I'm presently working with, somebody that I respect very much, and he actually brought up the flat earth to me. And it was very interesting because he said that he wasn't sure. He said nobody really knows if the earth is flat or round or not. But then we had a conversation about global warming, and he was totally certain, 100%, that the scientists knew what was going on and that the globe was warming. So I just thought that was an interesting juxtaposition. And it just, further alludes to the kind of strange mental state that's been fostered in this country. We have no common narrative. We have no common culture. We just have this endless languishing in a fake reality that the media propagates, this false signal that tells everyone to follow these archetypes that are completely artificial and totally divorced from any organic basis. There are organic archetypes. There's an organic, natural, divine masculine and divine feminine, and there is an objective truth that we can be seeking, but we have a culture where the men follow an artificial dominator masculine archetype, the women follow an artificial feminine dominator archetype, and, the truth is basically obliterated in the middle in this moral relativity where nobody believes there really is truth. It's all just different opinions, and why search for the truth if it doesn't exist? But this is what I'm talking about. This is very key today, because there is a truth, okay? It's not all just opinion, right? There is a way to find out what the truth is. There is a way to know, okay? So here's number one. All right, I'll just get into it, all right? Let's see. So, and I'm not going to reference NASA. You're not going to hear me say, well, because NASA took a picture of the Earth, that's why, okay? I will say that I do not believe that any effective proof of the Earth being round or flat should rely on some external authority. I'm an anarchist, all right? Knowledge is mine to hold. It's not something for an expert to give me. Alright, so the first, I saw the Flat Earth theory, and they've got these videos, and they're showing these super zoomed-in cameras, with optical zoom, and, whether it's like Morocco and Portugal, and they're looking out across the water, and they can see the buildings on the other side, and they're like, we shouldn't be able to see the buildings! How can we see the buildings? Like, the Earth should have curved enough so that we shouldn't be able to see those buildings. Furthermore, they should look like they're leaning backwards if they're, behind the horizon. So they say that they can document things appearing on a flat horizon of water, that shouldn't appear. And so that was interesting. That, a lot of this stuff was genuinely mentally challenging for me. It threw me for a loop because, I'm not the type of person that just rejects things out of hand or accepts things out of hand. I filter it through all of the different filters, and I find out what the truth is. And so one thing that, I figured I could do to test this theory I lived in Reno, in 2015, and so I figured, Lake Tahoe, right? Lake Tahoe is like, I think, 22 miles lengthwise, basically, so that looking out across the lake of Lake Tahoe, I was at the North Shore. And I figured, I wanted to get a telescope and during the day and look towards South Shore. Okay, there's tons of casinos, tons of lights on the South Shore, right? In Tahoe, or in, just South Lake Tahoe, like the Harrah's and the Nugget and all these casinos and everything. There's plenty of lights. Okay, so I decided instead of buying an expensive telescope, I'd just go up there at nighttime, and I should be able to see the lights of South Lake Tahoe from Incline Village at the beach, right? And what's interesting is I went up there and all I saw was a single red dot, which was basically the top of one of the casinos. So I only could see the very, very top of one of the buildings, okay? And, some flat earther might say, well, you shouldn't even be able to see the red dot. Well, basically the fact is, if the earth is flat, I should be able to see everything. I should be able to see the entire buildings all the way down to the beach line. Okay, I should be able to see, basically all the hotels with the lights lit up and all the rooms and, the windows. But I didn't see any of that. I just saw a single red light. And if you look closely in these flat earth videos where they're supposedly showing proof of the flat earth, at the Strait at Morocco, or there's a few other places where they do it, and basically they zoom, and they show, wow, look, we can see the buildings off on the horizon, and we shouldn't be able to see them. Well, look at that video again, and you'll see that you can only see the top half of the buildings. The same thing, if the earth was flat, you'd be able to see the entire building, okay? You wouldn't see just half the building. The fact that you only see half the building and you can't see down to the ground indicates that there is some amount of curvature. You flat earthers are assuming that the curvature should be greater, and because the curvature that you perceive is less, you say the earth is flat. But that is a fallacy, and it doesn't make sense, okay? So what is actually happening, just like in the Bedford Level experiment in England back in whatever the 1800s that claimed to prove a flat earth, and it was refuted, they said because of refraction of light. Okay, basically light, coming across a long, relatively flat water horizon, light will bend a little bit. That image will carry over the horizon like a lens, okay? The water will perform that effect and bring that image, bend that image into your eyes from beneath the horizon. So the curvature that you're expecting to perceive based on your math is not relevant because it doesn't factor in the nature of light. Okay, this is another thing with the buildings. We should see the buildings and they should be leaning back. You're talking about a fraction of a degree. Okay, no, you shouldn't see the buildings leaning back. They should look perfectly as they are in the video, totally level with the eye, just slightly sunk beneath the horizon. It's like if you're an amoeba on a basketball, you're not going to be able to perceive any curvature. Okay, not at the surface, and not even if you go way up into the atmosphere, okay? The atmosphere itself is like a layer of paint on a basketball, okay? Even going up 150,000 feet compared to the diameter of the Earth is nothing, literally nothing. You should not perceive any curvature no matter how high you go. So first of all, again, you're assuming that you should see curvature the higher up you go, but you should know, that's a false assumption. You should not see any curvature. You're on an almost infinitely large surface of a spheroid planet, and you are infinitesimally small compared to that planet. No matter how high up you go, it's all going to look flat. Okay? It's bigger than your little mind can even perceive in terms of our reality here and now. And the Earth is not a perfect sphere. Of course, it's not a perfect sphere. There's mountains and valleys and forests and trees, and it's slightly oblong at the middle. But this is another thing. People say you can't feel the Earth spinning. If the Earth was spinning, okay, we'd be able to feel the vibration of the Earth moving. Okay, that's another false assumption. Why should you feel the Earth spinning? If the Earth was rumbling as it was spinning, that would indicate a perturbation of a rotating sphere magnet that is so vast. If you could feel any vibration at all, the Earth would probably blow up, okay? It would cause mass earthquakes all over the planet. That's how amazing this planet is it is rotating without any sensation of resistance or friction or interference. It is a magnet just rotating in an ether field, okay? And you're saying, I can't feel the Earth spinning. I can't feel the Earth spinning. Well, I got a question for you. Do you ever feel the wind blow? Because that's a result of the Earth spinning, okay? Look at the wind maps of the planet. Just work with us for a second and assume that it's possible that the Earth is a globe, and go look at the wind maps for the planet, okay? The wind is constantly circling around the planet. There is a belt at the equator that's constantly going in one direction, and then there's the polar vortices which are spinning in the other direction, okay? You don't feel the planet moving because the planet is moving through space. Okay, you feel the wind though because the planet is spinning, and the wind keeps moving as a result of the planet moving. Okay, so if the planet was not moving at all, there would be no reason for the wind and the water to keep swirling. Okay, this is another thing. You want to throw out not just heliocentric model of the solar system. You want to throw out all of science. You want to throw out momentum. You want to throw out inertia. You want to throw out even Newtonian physics. You're not trying to just throw out Einstein, you're trying to throw out everything. Okay? So that's basically, alright, we covered the Tahoe and, the water, coming over the horizon. So there's another thing is when the sun is shining through the clouds, it comes in at a fairly, oblique angle. It's a fairly wide angle. So the sun will be, above the clouds, and you'll see these light rays coming through. And the light rays are actually kind of like a pretty fat angle rather than straight lines. You'd think that if the sun was millions of miles out there, that basically all the light rays would come down in parallel, lines. And that one really threw me for a loop because I would watch the sun and see that it's shining through, and it wasn't parallel. It looked artistically like the sun was just above the clouds, and it was this great glowing ball that was not very high in the sky. And so, visually, there is a case to be made from an artist's perspective, as to why the sun is not, 93 million miles away, but is, a couple thousand miles away, just by looking at the light and assuming that light always travels in straight lines. And there's your false assumption. Light does not always travel in straight lines. Light bends, light curves. Depending on the density of the medium that it's going through, light will change course, okay? It will fragment. It will split, okay? When light comes through the atmosphere of the Earth, it's coming through a lens. All the different densities of the atmosphere are further refracting those beams. So those photon beams, the beams of light, they are parallel when they enter the atmosphere. All right, and then they hit the lens of the Earth's atmosphere with all the different layers of water vapor and different, basically just densities of air molecules, and the beams split. So that when they hit the clouds, we're down here on the Earth, and the beams are already splitting, and then they hit the cloud, and it looks like they're, it's an oblique angle, and so it looks like the sun is really close. But it's really just that you don't understand how light works. Okay, and it's okay, not many people do. It threw me for a loop. I didn't quite properly understand why that was the case, but because of Flat Earth coming to the forefront, I was able to investigate that myself and come to a better understanding of how light works. And that's where really kind of this Flat Earth thing led me, was back to the electric universe, basically understanding that the Flat Earthers actually are right when they talk shit on Einstein. They are right when they talk shit on relativity. The relativity, both special and general, is the house of cards. It's a fraud. It doesn't make any sense. Dark matter is a fraud. It doesn't exist. Okay. The entire standard model of cosmology is literally collapsing right now to anyone who is paying attention. and the electric universe is on the ascendant, and it is basically something that can explain the totality of human observation and experience without jumping through all these hoops every time it encounters something new. All right. So let's see. So the Tahoe thing, okay, yeah, the light rays, planetary epicycles. All right, planetary epicycles. So watching the stars in the sky, right? Some of the stars are brighter because they're not stars; they're planets. All right, the moving stars versus the fixed stars, as the ancients said. Okay, and the moving stars, the planets, right? They'll be going in a normal course throughout the sky. You know, if thousands of years humans were watching these stars and planets. And the planets, they move across the sky, and they move and move and move, and then all of a sudden something weird happens with most of the planets, is at some point during their transit across the sky, they'll just turn around, and they'll just go in the other direction. And then they just turn around again, and they start going in the regular direction. Alright, and so to the old mystics thousands of years ago, the flat earthers back in their day, you know, they made up this whole elaborate scheme of how if the Earth is the center, and these planets are basically like changing course in the sky, like, they had this whole convoluted explanation of how the planets could literally just change course in the sky and go retrograde. That's what they call it, is retrograde motion. All right. So in the heliocentric model, that's not a problem at all. From your perspective, those planets are changing direction, but they're not actually changing direction. That vast, object, the flat earthers believe they're all just lights on a dome. Okay, so this is the real thing, is like you either have a scientific model of heliocentricity that explains planetary motion and planetary epicycles, retrograde motion, or you go with the flat earth and you believe that these are just lights on a dome, like a freaking, what do they call them, with kids in the crib, the spinning thing in the sky just to watch. It doesn't make any sense why it moves that way, it just does. Like, that's the flat earth perspective. We don't have any explanation, we don't have any understanding, we're just God's little sheep on this flat plane, and we believe that the government is evil, and that's the extent of the belief system, I guess. Which the government is evil, but that's not precisely why. Alright, so planetary epicycles makes no sense under the flat earth system. Under the heliocentric system, it's no problem at all. No problem. And so the final one, which is really the death blow to the flat earth theory, and this is kind of the one that I actually threw at a lot of the people who were promoting it back in 2015, and I got no response from any of them. And it was a very polite, respectful comment and a question. I just said, hey, thank you for your work. This is very interesting. I'm looking into this myself. But I've got one question, and I'm really looking for clarification if this flat earth model is legitimate. Why do the stars in the sky rotate around two focal points? Not one. Okay, the flat earthers are all about Polaris. Polaris, Polaris, Polaris. The North Star, all the stars in the sky are rotating around Polaris. Yeah, in the Northern Hemisphere. Hello, alright, is this like, are we pretending that there's not a Southern Hemisphere? And you can check out the videos where they supposedly explain how the stars in the Southern Hemisphere are rotating. Like, they try and claim that the stars in the Southern Hemisphere are actually, they're not really rotating around the southern, the South Pole in the sky, the southern node, but they're actually rotating around Polaris, and everybody who's just taking all these pictures, these millions of amateur photos, are just, that's just all NASA conspiracy. Like, okay. There's not a shining bright star at the southern node, at the southern pole in the sky. Alright, this closest one is a star called Sigma Octantis, which is fairly dim from our perspective. But the stars are rotating around two focal points, alright? There's no way for that to exist on a flat Earth. Geometrically, impossible, okay? There's so much more to the Earth that's going on. I honestly believe that there's something is being hidden at the poles. The North Pole and the South Pole. Who knows? A lot of the ancient, or the old school Enlightenment philosophers and scientists, and Newton and all these guys, they believed in a hollow Earth. They believed that inside of the Earth was some sort of a planetary star, and it was transmuting energy from the sun, and that at the poles, that the Earth is not a sphere, it's actually a torus, a toroid. It's like a donut, three-dimensional donut, basically, and that the poles, there are actually entry points, and there's an entire world on the inside. I don't know! I haven't been there, alright? I would love to commission an airship flight and go check it out myself, all Disney movie style, but I don't have the resources for that yet. Keyword yet. I will fly over Antarctica and I'll settle the damn matter myself and I'll film it for you flat earthers. But for now, I've just got logical proofs. I hope that this brought some clarity to people, or at least some entertainment. If you've never heard of the flat Earth theory, and count this up to entertainment value. But for those of you who were thrown that curveball by the CIA and their disinformation program, I much love and respect. I'm not making fun of you. Just so here's some information, because we got to put this thing to rest so that we can focus on the things that actually matter. Okay. We got Trump into the presidency. We stopped Hillary from taking us to World War III, but the entire deep state apparatus is rolling on like there's nothing changed at all. They're counting on us going to sleep. They're counting on us being ignorant and just, being distracted by the typical bullshit, okay? And I think that this is really an opportunity for us to set the bullshit aside and to find that common narrative and to reestablish our destiny on this planet and overthrow the parasites who have tried to claim it. Because that's what we're supposed to do. That's what the clock is telling us to do. All right. So much love to you all. Hope you have a great day. And let's see. I might make another video, but in any case, cheers.